So we have what's called the Egun, and Egun is spelled Egun. Okay, and the Egun are your ancestral energies. Now, it's something really important to understand about Egun, and the word Egun means bone. Okay, it means bone. So when we're dealing with the Egun, we got to understand that why we know they use the word Egun, knowing that it means bone, is because blood is created in the bone marrow. Okay, so when you're serving your Egun or giving offering to your Egun, in fact, symbolically, metaphysically, and metaphorically, you're giving offering to your own blood. Okay, your Egun live inside of your blood, and the Egungun is a society. It's a cult that was created. Just like you have the Orisha. Okay, so you have like churches of Ogun, churches of Yemoja, churches of Achosi, Baba, churches of Dada, Oba. And also important to understand that each Orisha has its own realm of heaven and its own realm of hell. Each Orisha is a realm unto itself. So, for instance, you have Ogun. Ogun's heaven would be expansion, money, fortune, moving forward with vitality and virility. Ogun's hell would be constant, senseless violence, isolation, depression, being taken advantage of. So there's a heaven and hell, or polarity of the Egun, or again, the ancestors, and how the different manifestations. So far we've already got, we have Ori, we have Oludumare, we have the energy behind Oludumare, we have the Ori, we have Orisha, and we have Egun. Okay, these are all different streams of cognition that come from what we like to call the supreme being, or Atumare. Okay, there was a point that's important to understand too when we're dealing with the Egun, and there's an energy or a concept that we speak about in Yoruba, or I should say in Ifa and Orisha tradition, known as Ojiji. Okay, and that's Ojiji. Okay, Ojiji. And Ojiji is the coherent force of the physical body. Okay, just like earlier when I was speaking about the Ori, and I said we have the Ori Ara, and the Ara is the physical body, or what we can call gross matter energy. So the Ara, or the body, is your gross matter, and the Ojiji is more of your electromagnetic energy. Okay, Ojiji lives inside of the blood, but it's really readily tapped into. Ojiji also lives within your shadow. Now, go back to our Kemetic studies, and again, when we're dealing with the shadow energy, the Ojiji is typically fire. Now, an important point to understand when we're dealing with ancestors, or sometimes when we think we're communicating with ancestors and things like that, is to understand how Ojiji dissipates and how it's strengthened. There were reports that 3 days after the bombing of Hiroshima, that the shadows of the buildings were still on the ground, and people, they couldn't figure out why. Sometimes when people transition and it's a rainstorm and you go over to the cemetery, you still see the bodies, the spirits, or the Ojiji, what we call it, floating over the body. Okay, it hasn't disconnected from the chain yet. Okay, the same thing happened in Hiroshima. That shadow power didn't disconnect from the chain of the gross matter manifestation of those buildings. Ojiji is dissipated under the sun. Okay, so in sunlight, Ojiji dissipates. Ojiji dissipates in front of mirrors. You put Ojiji in front of a mirror, it begins to dissipate. Garlic does the same thing to Ojiji, because garlic thins out the blood, so it dissipates Ojiji. Now, if anybody has already picked up on it, I just described to you three traits of the vampire. Okay, that vampire energy. The vampire has no shadow on the ground. It has no reflection in the mirror, and it can't be around the garlic. Okay, so this is very similar to what the brother said earlier about these concepts being taken and rehashed and then spookified, of course.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I just need to hit the Ojiji piece, because a lot of times when we think that we're communicating with our Egun, our ancestors, we're dealing with, we're a lot of times we're communicating with someone's Ojiji body that needs some Ashe to manifest. Okay, blood is
so
Ashe.
To a shell or discarnated, right? It's similar to a shell or a discarnated spirit or soul.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You know, and then you have fake Orisha, which is similar in the same instance. And a lot of this comes from not only just the spookification, but, you know, when things are anthropomorphized to the point that we no longer understand the divine nature of them, we only see them as humans, then we look for some type of sensual experience when connecting with them. So we connect with the Shango or Oshun or Ogun, we want to feel something without really understanding that these are entities that never felt anything. They didn't, you know, it's in many traditions, they teach you that these were, your Orisha were ancestors that they lived such an exacting life to their character that they were transitioned and elevated to the place of ancestors. Orisha. This is actually not accurate. Now, we can make someone an Orisha, just like those Orishas were created based on our collective energy towards them, because the Orisha exist on a certain plane and then they stop. They don't exist on the soul level. Okay, it's a different thing going on. So just like you go to certain parts of the world, I know especially in Brazil, Gandhi is now an Orisha. It's a thought form. And that's what the Orishas are. They're thought forms. So at the end of the day, what that means also is this. You don't need the Orisha. Okay?
Right.
You can use them, you can employ them, but you don't need them. You actually don't need anything but your own Ori. That's the only entity you really need to work with. That's your soul, because every soul comes here with a mission from Olodumare. And Olodumare, as a hookup, gave us all these different primal energies to help us climb Jacob's ladder to get back home. But you don't actually need to use them. They're just there. So even people a lot of times go to their Egun and say, well, I'm going to see if my Egun will help. Your Egun are there for one reason in terms of what they do for you. What they do for you is they relay empathetic and somatic information to Orisha. That's all they do. So when you are walking in your bedroom at night and you stub your toe on your bedpost and you pray to Oshun to make the pain go away, Oshun says, I never had a toe stub. I don't know what you're talking about. So you see your Egun to relay the information because they had their toe stub before. So what it is that they do is that they relay. They had a physical body. They relay that sensory experience back to the Orisha. So that is really more, again, the purpose of that Egun energy. And there's different ways. When you learn how to master your Ojiji, this is where we hear reports in Nigeria, people shape-shifting. Ojiji forms the gross matter body. So once you learn how to really master it, you can form a different gross matter body, however you decide to. And, it's different ways that you can work with your Ojiji, deep breathing, affirmations, things like that. But that's, I want
Have you ever heard of Simon? Have you ever heard of Simeon Toko?
No, I haven't.
It's from the tales of what is known as Fatima. The tales of Fatima, coming from the Catholic Church, in which that's from out of Angola, obviously the Congo, back in the early 1900s, mid 1900s to, I think he lived from mid 1900s to 1984. But it is said and reported that he was able to project 1,000 brown angels, what is known as the similar to like the Twa. They were very muscular and diminutive, you know what I'm saying? And one was able to lift up a 2-ton, I think a 5-ton truck with one hand. Get over. Let's talk about that, because you was talking about building the body. Obviously that's building also the body of light. I would think that's probably part of the cool, which is the glorified light body, of an individual. I mean, how do you see that?
Okay, well, again, that kind of goes to mastering that Ojiji energy. Okay,
right.
Understanding, once we understand, and this is why we're kind of really speaking about the science of Orisha, not the cartoon of Orisha. Because once you understand the science, then you can create your own, you could do reverse engineering. Oh, this is how I was assembled. So how can I disassemble myself? Okay.
Right.
And there is an exact Odu that deals with this assemblage, and that's the Odu of Oshe, O-S-E. And Oshe deals with decompiling yourself, or just decompiling things, period. And then you have Ofun that deals with compiling, which is the last Odu. Okay, but when we're talking about decompiling, that's really beyond the pay grade of Orisha. Okay, now we're going into a place where you're going back into the Okan realm, and there were reports of things like that. Now, but here's the issue with that. There were reports of people going back into the Okan realm and coming back different. I spoke to a lot of Awo. Awo is the name that we use for like priests, and they would talk about their grandfathers and grandmothers walking into rocks. Walking into the side of cliff and just walking right through it. You see, it's like the Matrix. They saw the code. They saw how to decompile the code, the binary. So that's absolutely possible, the decompiling of reality, because your reality is orchestrated by what we call our Ori Essentaye. Ori is also called your destiny. And when you come to the planet, you have a certain destiny that's orchestrated by your soul. But once you can tap back into that soul level, because there's really no time for this, and what I mean by that, there's no set time to say, okay, you Ori did this, and then an hour later, you came out of your mother's womb. Okay, it doesn't really work like that. Even the creation story of the Yoruba, where it's, the Orumila coming down on the chain and dropping the sand, and we don't really have a time scale for this. So that tells us that this is a continuous process. So the world, the human, is continuously being formed. So if you can tap into that soul energy, you can go renegotiate the terms of your creation and say, okay, I see you started making me like this. Okay, cool. But tell you what, let's try this. Let's try a little bit. Let's try a little bit of that. Okay, you can renegotiate it, because at the end of the day, you have Emi inside of you, the divine spark of Olodumare. All of these entities that are responsible for the evolution and the creation of gross matter and the things like we're speaking about, lifting 5-ton trucks, they're actually at your command. It's like the genie in the bottle, Aladdin, polishing that pineal or polishing that lamp, and the genie coming out and saying, hey, what do you want me to do? Your wish is my command. The Orisha, that's exactly what they are. They are genies in the bottle. But you can go above them and say, you know what? Not only do I want to create a different perceived reality, which is dealing with, what's seen, that Kether, I want to create a different subcontext reality, the subtle energy. I want to change the spirit, of something and totally rearrange its molecules. And that's when you start tapping into and becoming Olu Dumare or Atum Mare, dealing with the atoms. And that's why you can lift a 5-ton truck, because you're now expressing yourself on the planet as the supreme intelligence.
Excellent, brother. Excellent.
Yeah.
Man, this is one of the best wonderful breakdowns that we have had.
So we have what's called the Egun, and Egun is spelled E-G-U-N. Okay, and the Egun are your ancestral energies. Now, it's something really important to understand about Egun, and the word Egun means bone. Okay, it means bone. So when we're dealing with the Egun, we got to understand that why we know they use the word Egun, knowing that it means bone. Ogun's hell would be constant, senseless violence, isolation, depression, being taken advantage of. So there's a heaven and hell, or polarity of the Egun, or again the ancestors, and how the different manifestations. So far we've already got, we have Ori, we have Oludumare, we have the energy behind those of Ogun, churches of Yemoja, churches of Achosi, Baba, churches of Dada, Oba. And also important to understand that each Orisha has its own realm of heaven and its own realm of hell. Each Orisha is a realm unto itself. So for instance, you have Ogun. Ogun's heaven would be expansion, money, fortune, moving forward with vitality and virility. We have the Ori, we have Orisha, and we have Egun. Okay, these are all different streams of cognition that come from what we like to call a supreme being, or Atumare. Okay, there was a point that's important to understand too when we're dealing with the Egun, and there's an energy or a concept that we speak about in Yoruba, is because blood is created in the bone marrow. Okay, so when you're serving your Egun, or giving offering to your Egun, in fact, symbolically, metaphysically, and metaphorically, you're giving offering to your own blood. Okay? Your Egun live inside of your blood. And the Egungun is a society. It's a cult that was created. Just like you have the Orisha. Okay, so you have like churches